Hi guys, welcome back to Daytoday Chess. This is Sabina and I'm starting off the day reminding you of this endgame study that Paul Keres composed in 1935. As I mentioned to you in last video and the previous one, this year marks the 100-year anniversary since Paul Keres' birth, and I really wanted to make something special on my YouTube channel. And this was a position that I had shared with you guys about 2 videos ago, I believe. And so I want to remind you that I would love to hear your I would love to see your solutions posted in the comments below. So if you have solved it, please write it in the comments, and hopefully the person who's going to solve it correctly, and I'm going to choose from the people that are sending me messages privately as well. I'm going to choose a game to analyze for my subscribers. So be sure to be subscribed to my YouTube channel, and you have the chance to win the opportunity of having one of your games analyzed in a post for the day. So I'll be choosing those very soon, but tomorrow I will be showing the solution. So if you haven't done so yet, you still have a little bit of chance to post your answers for this position. Okay, so for today, I have prepared for you a game played between Panno Oscar and Paul Keres in Los Angeles in 1963. I think this is a very nice game, and I'm continuing showing this great players one of his games. So here they started basically in English, but then it went to Nimzovich, bishop b7, bishop g2, bishop e7. So okay, a little bit changed variations on Nimzo-Indian, not bishop b4 but bishop e7. Well, when white doesn't play b4, it's not that great for black to play bishop b4. There are some lines maybe, but in general, black is better off keeping their bishop in e7 and then, keeping opportunities of playing with c5 or d5. So castle, castle, and in this position, white transposed to a Nimzovich, technically d4. But this is a little bit different than the regular Nimzovich lines because white has the bishop in g2, right? So when this happens, although the bishop is better placed on the a8, h1 diagonal, the bishop does not control the square e4, and we have already talked about this in a couple of my videos, that it's very important in the Nimzovich. The fight kind of is on the e4 square, so everybody, they're just two sides, right? So both white and black are going to try to get the control over the e4 square, black is not going to allow white to play e4, and black would love to place a piece in e4. And that's exactly what Paul Keres did. He went for knight e4 in this position, just making sure the knight is going to be nicely placed, and then it's going to be defended with f5. And of course f5, not d5, because we want to make sure our bishop in b7 is going to be opened. Queen c2. And here he decided not to play f5, probably because there are some ideas with knight e5 here for white. And eventually you're either going to have to play d5, which you don't really want, because after capture, pawn takes, this bishop in b7 got closed. So black wants to avoid to play d5, and that is the reason why in this position, after queen c2, Paul Keres captured in c3, and white captured back with the queen, f5. So we eliminated a piece that was controlling the e4 square, and now we're playing f5 because we are keeping the bishop in b7 open, not allowing white to move the knight and get the control over e4. In fact, white can move the knight, right? Let's just say knight e5 can be played, but black is really happy with the trade of the light square bishops because most of his pawns are already on white square. And not only that, we're exchanging a piece that's protecting white's king. So this should be in black's favor. Of course, d6 will eventually be played, either now or first bishop f6, and black's position is about equal. Okay, so after f5, white played b3. It's time to improve the position of our pieces. Of course, black has in mind to play d6, knight d7, prepare some e5, but this bishop in e7 doesn't stay that well for the moment. So Paul Keres improved its position by playing bishop f6. This is a really good diagonal for the bishop, of course, controlling the square e5, keeping some pressure on d4, bishop b2. And I want to tell you, what do you think is black's plan? Black's plan, well, now after black has stopped white from playing e4 temporarily, maybe white will still be able to play e4 eventually, but for the moment, white cannot play e4. So black's idea is to prepare some d6, knight d7, queen will go to e7, the rook will come on e8, and then play e5. This is black's plan from this Nimzo-Indian when they managed to play f5. Black at some point has to counterattack the center, and this seems to be the best approach, because with the bishop in b7, attacks on the king side will be greatly viewed from black. So definitely this is a plan. Now it doesn't mean that you can always do it, but this is the plan that you should go and prepare with black. So Paul Keres played d6. Rook d1, white is going to prepare to play e4, knight d7, knight e1. Eventually white has to trade that bishop. I mean, they don't really want to, but they have to at some point, because there's some people who sometimes play bishop h3 and try to move the knight in order to prepare e4 but not have the bishop traded. But just think about it, it takes really too long of a time for white to do all of these things. And black can switch the plan a little bit. Now with the bishop in h3, you are keeping me from pushing e5 because this pawn might be hanging, but I can have some ideas to prepare, either thinking of some a5, a4, or some c5, some rook c8, you know, trying to open up the position in the center by attacking d4 with c5. So e5 is not the only possibility for black. These days I've noticed white plays ideas like this, but on those times knight e1 was the most, you know, played approach. Of course, we trade the bishop immediately. Bishop takes, knight takes. And here, like I said, black is preparing to play e5. And in this position, Paul Keres played queen e8, which is an interesting idea. Normally, people play queen e7 in this position. But if you're thinking from a principal point of view, when we only remain with a bishop on the board, we should try to keep our queen on the opposite side, on the opposite color than our own bishop, and that the reason that we do that is to be able to control more squares on the board with the queen as well. So this is one of the reasons that he played queen e8, and he had another reason, and you're going to see it in a second. But I like actually queen e8 a little bit better than queen e7 personally. Another possibility that actually was played in that same year, in 1963, between Petrosian and Botvinnik, was bishop g5 in this position. But I really think I really enjoy queen e8 a little bit more. Queen c2. Let's not forget, now that the bishops have been traded, white's plan remains the same, to prepare e4. So black, by capturing in c3, has gotten rid of a piece that was controlling the e4 square, but so did white by trading these light square bishops. So now they need one more piece to help push the e4. And in this position, a very interesting approach by Paul Keres, and I was telling you a little bit earlier that I liked queen e8 a little bit more. He didn't go for e5 here. Why didn't he go for e5? Well, because now with the queen in c2, you can't really go for e5. So you need to prepare it a little bit more, and it seems that white would be ready to play e4, right? Here, when you play, I can just take it. It's a free pawn. So that is the reason why after queen c2, Paul Keres switched a little bit the plan. So went from playing e4 to playing on the king side by playing g5 in this position. And now the queen being in e8 can also come towards on g6, maybe h5, and that is how black is going to continue the attack. And now white played d5, which normally is an interesting, counter-attack of whites in the center. But e4 is the right plan, which Panno Oscar failed to do at this moment, and maybe was afraid of f4 because, with g5 we're also helping the push of f4, but I think white shouldn't have worried. This capture seems to be possible, and after pawn takes, we don't need to take back in f4, but we can probably just play king h1 or f3, just making sure this pawn is not going to advance more. And black's pieces seem not to be really ready for the attack. This bishop, if you will ever protect f4 by playing e5, you are closing your dark square bishop, well, which is the only one that you have. And white can simply go king h1, the rook will come to g1, the queen can come to defend in f2, so doesn't seem to be any kind of direct attack from black that is going to lead to anything here. So e4 was the right approach. If you're playing this with white, keep in mind that in the Nimzovich, in general, the fight is for the e4 square. So, whether black is going to be able to blockade it and keep their, piece there so that white doesn't play e4, that would be great. But if that doesn't happen, white should really make e4 work. And here in this position, it seems like it would have been a good approach. So d5 was Panno Oscar's approach, and now Paul Keres was able to trade their bishop, which, in the other line that I was showing you would have remained closed. So this was a good answer. D takes e6. After queen takes b2, by the way, you should know that I would have played e5 immediately. Hopefully Paul Keres too. After trading the bishop, now we don't need to worry about having another pawn on dark square, and black is going to focus on the king side to attack. So both players will have plans, white on the queen side and black on the king side. But d takes e6 was the intermediate move chosen by Panno. And now, of course, queen takes e6, queen takes b2, and now we have to finish our development, bring this rook into play, rook a to e8. That pawn seems to be weak, right? And e3 was Panno's response. Seems to be the natural approach. This move, however, seems to be more active, because now if you take, I would be playing f4 and try to get to utilize the fact that black's king is weak with this g5, now that the position started getting open. So this was another possibility, or maybe queen d2 would have been another interesting idea for white to try to get some attack on g5, but of course I can play f4 here. All black's pieces are on the king side, so he shouldn't be very worried that his king is weak. Still, white can try to utilize those weaknesses in a way or another, just not allow black to get too much counterplay. After e3, however, you should notice that there are some weaknesses. Well, this specific f3 square became weak in white's position, so you have to be very careful about the way you're moving your pawns and what you're leaving behind. Queen h6, and here f4. Trying to make sure that the position will be closed and black will not be able to continue the attack. However, after f4, g4, the position has been closed indeed, And now what white has remained with is this backwards pawn in e3, this weakness of the e4 square, and it doesn't seem like a clear plan for white. It doesn't seem like white actually has a clear plan. So f4 was probably not the best approach here. Maybe queen e2 could be considered, or h4. There's a difference between playing h4, because now if you play g4, well, now I have the f4 square for my knight. My knight still has some possibilities, but in the other case, nothing anymore. So let's just see from here on how Paul Keres was able to convert this game. The advantage doesn't seem maybe that big, but it is, in fact. The knight is stuck to staying and defending the e3 pawn. You won't be able to move the rooks very much, because my queen could potentially get active via e4, f3, depending on how you move the rooks. Rook d1, knight f6. The knight needs to get into play, and this seems like a nice spot eventually. Rook has to go back. Okay, let's improve the position of our pieces. This rook seems to be good, and the queen as well. Let's try to improve the position of this rook. Rook f7, rook d7. Preparing for some d5 potentially. Let's see. Okay, white is trying to get their knight active, but where? I mean, f5 is protected. You don't have another way to attack it for the moment. I mean, you need to play rook c3, then queen d3 to be able to attack it. And at that point, I can just play knight e4, and I've defended after, two of your moves to try to attack the f5 pawn. I was able to defend in one. So a6, king f7. He doesn't hurry. Like I was telling you yesterday in the video from yesterday, if you haven't seen it yet, please be sure to go back and check it. But I was telling you that Paul Keres was a very dynamic player, yet he was a very good positional player as well, because this is how he won this position. Queen b2, rook d8, preparing for a breakthrough. Queen e2, c6. He doesn't hurry though. Very slowly, move by move, step by step, improvement of piece by piece. a5 first, just to avoid any kind of pushes. Queen c2. Okay, knight e4. Now your rook in d3 won't have that many possibilities of getting moved, only in d4 if you want to. And that's exactly what white played. Time to play d5. It is time. I have prepared well enough. My king has been brought closer to the center. The pawns have been pushed, much enough that is needed. The rooks have been brought to the best position. Now it's time to open up a little bit the position, because otherwise it will be impossible to actually win that pawn, right? Capture, capture, trading, 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 trading. Okay, white is happy with the trades, because hopefully in the end game, black won't be able to attack that e3 pawn. But now if you look at this position, you'll see that black is much better, because he has a majority here that's mobile. He has 3 versus 2. And white's majority is not mobile, is in fact blocked by my knight. And even if the knights would be traded, you still would not be able to create a passed pawn in good circumstances, because you would just lose material. King f1, bringing the king towards the center, just making sure no entrances would happen. The king is coming. Knight c5, and in this position, probably white had to play king e2 to try to make sure the file was closed and controlled, and black wouldn't. It would be harder for black to improve in this position. Still b5 would be possible here, and then the idea for black would be to play b5, b4, and then try to improve the position of this knight this way. Bring it to c3, and black would have big chances to win this. I mean, obviously, he's much better. This knight is totally out of play, as I was mentioning to you long time ago. After playing that f4, basically that knight was dead. So Panno played king f2, after which white is simply winning. Try to pause the video and find the continuation here for black. Queen d3. It's totally fine to trade the queens, because now the knight would get active and win everything, or knight d3, c1 just taking. So Panno went not to allow the queen trade, but now the knight got active. Knight c3. That was the exactly the spot that I was mentioning to you earlier that I wanted to get on. Now c5, and the queen, white's queen remained passive and was not able to get active, and because of that, white is simply losing here. h3, check, knight e4, and the mate is coming. Some checks here. It's impossible for white to defend in this position, and Panno resigned. I really enjoyed this game, and I hope you did as well. Be sure to stay tuned for more tomorrow. But tomorrow is Season Up Sunday, so it will be the first Season Up Sunday of the year. Have a wonderful evening and day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.